أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذ قال الله يا عيسى إني متوفيك ورافعك إلي ومطهرك من الذين كفروا وجعل الذين اتبعوك فوق الذين كفروا إلى يوم القيامة ثم إلي مرجعكم فأحكم بينكم فيما كنتم فيه تختلفون. For the last few days we are discussing, for the last 3 days of Dars, we are discussing this verse from various angles and from various points of view. Yesterday I was presenting the point of view of those non-Ahmadi scholars of this century mainly, and also some of the older times, who agree with the Ahmadiyya point of view. And we were still on this subject when I left, so from there I am going to take up the thread again. But before that, I want to discuss one other subject which I discussed from one point of view yesterday, but later on I thought the subject which I discussed needed further attention. You remember I told you about criticism of Maulana Maududi of Ahmadiyya position on the death of Jesus Christ, and I told you that he ridiculed the Ahmadiyya position by saying that it is sheer absurdity to attempt to prove the death of Jesus Christ from this verse, and it is tantamount to insulting God. It's tantamount to saying that God doesn't know simple, plain expressions in any language. So I gave you the example of his argumentation. Now later on I remember when I returned from here that the verse he had in mind at that time perhaps was not the verse of Mutawaffika, but the verse which says وَقَالِهِمْ إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا الْمَسِيحَ عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ and وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ. That verse was in his mind. So I should discuss it from the point of view of that verse. Number one, he claims that the Ahmadis say that the death of Jesus Christ can be proved beyond a shadow of doubt from this verse. This is a wrong, this is what he attributes to us wrongly. We do not emphasize this verse for this purpose. We have always been emphasizing other verses like فَلَمَّا تَوَفَّيْتَنِي كُنْتَ أَنْتَ الرَّقِيبَ عَلَيْهِمْ, like مَا الْمَسِيحُ ابْنُ مَرْيَمَ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ, like مَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ أَفَإِنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ انقلبتم عَلَى أَعْقَابِكُمْ, and so on and so forth. So this is a verse which the non-Ahmadis present in support of their case. So he knows all this debate. He intentionally picks out the different verse from the one which we emphasize and wants to create an impression that this is their mainstay. From this verse they attempt to prove the death of Jesus Christ, and this is sheer absurdity and all this. So first of all, that attitude is totally wrong. This is not the verse which we highlight in this issue. Secondly, again, what Ahmadi position regarding this verse is this, that this verse positively proves that the Jews failed to kill him. And that is the emphasis of this verse. So if the Jews failed to kill him, it does not automatically result into his everlasting life. It does not lead us to believe that because Jews failed to kill him, so Jesus must never die or must be given a life beyond the normal measure of life meted out to ordinary people and earlier prophets. So that is our argument. And that argument still holds water and is still so strong that I have yet, so far I have not found any adversary of Ahmadiyyat who has been able to rebut this argument. So he has presented Ahmadiyya case distortedly, intentionally to give it an apparent weakness. So it has to be clarified, so this is why I have taken up the issue once again. Now regarding that verse, you should understand that although, but I have spoken of this before, but in short I will remind you, although the issue seems to be, the issue at hand seems to be the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, but the Holy Quran does not take it as such. The Holy Quran is very strange and very outstanding, the way the Quran deals with this subject. Instead of saying the debate is about his crucifixion or not crucifixion or lack of crucifixion, the Holy Quran says the debate is about the Jewish claim that they caused the death of Jesus Christ. So the issue taken up by the Holy Quran is in a completely different light and a different posture. According to the Holy Quran, it seems irrelevant how he died, other than the point that he did not die through the conspiracy or through the efforts of the Jews. And Jews or the government of that time, at the instance and behest of the Jews, failed to cause death to Jesus Christ. This is the spirit and substance of that verse, which is very clear. So during my question answer sessions in Pakistan, I have repeatedly taken up this issue with the visiting non-Ahmadi scholars, and sometimes I asked them to stand up and I said, before you start asking me any questions, let me ask you a few questions, please. And they said, yes, please, what do you want to ask? I said, this is just a few personal affairs. I said, I generally, I started with asking about their grandfather's life, whether he was alive or not. And as I expected, mostly, the answer was, no, he died. And sometimes when somebody said, no, he's still alive, and said, all right, his father. He said, no, he's died, he's dead. So I said, all right, are you sure he's dead? He said, yes, I'm very sure. I know this will be my grandfather, of course. So I said, all right, now be firm on this, he's dead. So when he was crucified, and when was he murdered, please? Then he got the shock of his life and he said, what do you mean? He was neither crucified nor murdered. I say, I told him then, can you assert it on authority and repeatedly that in no way was your grandfather murdered or crucified? So he got worked up. He said, no, I know it. I said, then he must be alive. Show me where he is. And then he got the shock of his life, real shock, He said, no, he's dead, I'm telling you. I said, no, but you're also telling me that he was neither crucified nor murdered. So this is the statement of the Holy Quran in this verse, from which you infer that because Jesus was neither murdered nor crucified, so he must be alive. Now, you understand, this is the Ahmadiyya position. God never rejects the possibility of the death of Jesus Christ. That is not the issue at hand at all. As the Holy Quran has taken up the issue, it begins by saying, وَقَالَهِمْ إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا الْمَسِيحَ عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. And the claim of the Jews, we have caused the death of Jesus Christ by murdering him. So, after rejecting both these claims, first of all, why murder? Why not crucifixion? Crucifixion is mentioned later on in second in order. Says, then the Holy Quran says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ. It were not they who murdered him, nor did they succeed in crucifying him. Then in the end, the final net result is, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا. The Holy Quran doesn't say, وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ يَقِينًا, because salib or crucifixion is just one means of murder, one instrument of murder. And it was not the instrument which was emphasized by the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran emphasized the issue that he was not permitted to, they were not permitted to kill him in any way. Crucifixion or other way of murder. He was not murdered whatsoever they did to him, and we saved his life. Where does God say, so we also did not kill him? So if, according to Maulana Maududi, Allah knew the simple plain language of Arabic, and he wanted to prove that he was never killed at all in any manner of speaking, then God should have said, also I did not cause his death. That part is missing. That should be highlighted by Ahmadis in their debate. So this is also an example of Maududi's fallacies. How he creates these fallacies and people take him simply as a great scholar and they think, oh, well done, the great, victory over Ahmadiyyat through Maulana Maududi and this and that. So after this, now I turn to the subject where I left, of reading from those commentaries which have taken a position very close, if not identical, very close to the Ahmadiyya position. In Tafsir Ruhul Bayan, under the discussion of the verse فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَعَذِّبُهُمْ, which follows the verse of which we are discussing, he casually mentions, the writer, the author of this tafsir mentions, in ayat mein ek ishara hai, farmaya ya Isa inni mutawaffika. There is indication or implied message. Ishara here means implied message. There is an implied message in the verse Ya Isa inni mutawaffika. And that implied message is that, O Jesus, so says God, O Jesus, I am going to rid you of the animal instincts in you and the lowly inclinations with which generally men are born. That is to say, their natural instinct or desires to commit sin and this and that. So that is, he says, what mutawaffika means. So this is again a mystic attempt to understand the meaning of mutawaffika and also to solve the problem of the apparent change of order. Fathul Qadir. I have got all the references of these books, which can be, when it is transcribed, this thus, then they can be added later on. I don't have to repeat everywhere unnecessarily. But Fathul Qadir is written by Allama Muhammad bin Ali bin Muhammad al-Shawkani. He is known as Sahib-e Nailul Awtar. This also is a book of a later period, but not very late. It belongs to about 55 years ago, Hijrah, 55 years Hijrah. It was written in 1349. I'm sorry. This page I had included in my notes for a different purpose. So I shift to the other one, to another commentary. This is a commentary whose author is widely known in India. His name was Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. He was a contemporary of Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. The name of his commentary is Fathul Bayan fi Maqasid al-Quran. He has made a few very interesting comments which I wanted to share with you because they are very useful for Ahmadis. In Zad al-Ma'ad, according to him, Allama ibn Qayyim is reported to have written that Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, lived for 33 years and then he ascended up to heaven. Incidentally, I have been using the word ascent in transitive form as well, but I have always nourished the doubt that perhaps it is only an intransitive verb, so I shouldn't have used it in the sense God, he got ascended to heaven, or he was ascended by God. So I think that was wrong. So wherever I have used this expression, kindly correct it to the right one. Jesus ascended or God lifted him. That I think should be the correct English. What do you say, Mr. Scrivener? Is the word ascend, the verb ascend, transitive as well or just intransitive? Transitive as well? So if it is used in transitive sense as well, then nothing is to be changed. Then my expression was right, but we'll check up, find out from the dictionaries. If it is used only in intransitive form, then we can never say Jesus got ascended by God or God ascended into heaven. Then we can only use the expression Jesus ascended up to heaven or into heaven. So anyway, here I am using the safe expression. According to them, his ascent took place at the time, the ascent took place when he was 33 years old. Now, again, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan says that according to Shafi, that report about Jesus Christ's ascent at the age of 33 is an interpolation of the Christians. And it was not a Muslim idea, in fact. I don't think it is Imam al-Shafi he's referring to. It's a different commentator, so remember this. One of the commentators of the Holy Quran, earlier commentators, had written that this idea of Jesus' ascent when he was 33 is not originally a Muslim idea. It has no roots in the traditions of the Holy Prophet, etc. This was an alien idea which came from the Christians and got introduced into the Islamic views and beliefs. While the true Islamic belief is that his ascent took place when he was 120 years old. And from that, they mean that Hazrat Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said that the life of the age of Jesus was 120 years according to the solar reckoning, and 125 years according to the lunar reckoning. Now, this also resolves the issue of ascent, Rafa, because there Rasul Akram sallallahu alaihi wasallam has not mentioned his bodily ascent at all. He has mentioned his age. So these authors incidentally also accept the Ahmadiyya view that Rafa means death. And it is the lifting of the spirit and soul, not the lifting of the body. So he says this was what I understood from Ash-Shafi. So I was surprised when I read that Imam Ibn Qayyim, who is a very great traditionist and expert in hadith, to such an order that he is called Hafiz. He's memorized the hadith of Rasulullah Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. One of the greatest experts on hadith of all times to come. So he said, when I read his opinion, contradictory to the opinion expressed by Ash-Shafi, I was, dismayed, and I was worried what was happening, and I could not believe Hazrat Imam Ibn Qayyim to have said this, knowing the fact that Rasulullah Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had clearly mentioned that his rafa or his ascent took place when he was 120 years old. He said, later on I was relieved. I'm sorry, no, Ibn Qayyim. Suyuti ka hona chahiye na yahan to. So the second surprise, this is the first surprise about Ibn Qayyim. Then Allama Jalaluddin Suyuti also, according to Zurqani, had written in Al-Muhalla, has taken the position again, like Ibn Qayyim, that the ascent of Jesus Christ took place when he was 33 years old. So these two things worried him to a great degree. Then fortunately, he says, for me, I came across one of the books of Allama Suyuti published under the title Mirqatu Saud. And I was so relieved to find that in that book he had retrieved his earlier position and corrected himself and said that position which I had taken earlier was wrong. And actually the ascent of Jesus Christ took place when he was 120 years old. So this is also a very strong argument in favor of the Ahmadiyya position, that all these great scholars have agreed that the word ascent, that is rafa, is identical with the word death. And when Rasulullah Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has mentioned the age of Jesus Christ to be 120, that is what is meant by rafa in real sense. And at the same time, as far as I remember, his own view about Jesus Christ was that he was alive in heaven. Maulana Siddiq Hasan Khan's view. Malik Saif Rahman Sahib? Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan himself believed in the life of Jesus Christ that he was still alive in heaven. Didn't he? And still he is taking this position against his own views. Pardon? Adopt kiya. So that means in the end actually he agreed with the Ahmadiyya position. This shows this. Huh? Yes. But Ahl Hadith would not accept this fact. This is very obvious that he is accepting the Ahmadiyya position. Yes. So that is why I have included it among those scholars who agree with the Ahmadiyya position. But otherwise, as far as I remember, his personal view had been all his life that Jesus Christ was alive in heaven. But this perhaps led him to the truth. Tafsir al-Tahrir wa Tanweer, published 1984. The author is Al-Imam al-Shaykh Muhammad al-Tahir ibn Ashur al-Dar al-Tunsiya. He belongs to Tunis. One of our contemporary authors of commentaries. Inni mutawaffi ka should be understood in its apparent sense, that is, I am going to cause you to die, mumito ka. Then he says, which means when we say tawaffahullahu, when we say somebody, Allah caused tawaffa of somebody, what we mean is God caused him to die. And when we say tawaffahu malakul maut, that the angel of death, did the tawaffi of somebody, then also we mean that angel of death has caused his death and he died. Although partially and in metaphoric terms, the word tawaffi has been used to indicate sleep. Like in the verses of the Holy Quran, هُوَ الَّذِي يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ, it is He, Allah, who causes you to die during nights. Again, اللَّهُ يَتَوَفَّى الْأَنفُسَ حِينَ مَوْتِهَا وَالَّتِي لَمْ تَمُتْ فِي مَنَامِهَا فَيُمْسِكُ الَّتِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا الْمَوْتَ وَيُرْسِلُ الْأُخْرَى إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُّسَمًّى. Again in this verse he says, the word tawaffi is used to indicate sleep. But this is only done because sleep is very similar to death, and also it is made clear by God Himself. And we find an indication in the verses there that the death is used metaphorically. The word tawaffi has that same meaning of death. But here the word death is used metaphorically to indicate sleep. So it does not mean that it doesn't mean death but anything else. So he says the God makes it clear it's Himself. هُوَ الَّذِي يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ بِاللَّيْلِ. Then he says, حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتُ تَوَفَّتْهُ رُسُلُنَا. But that is not death. Then when real time for death comes, then God sends His angels and they cause the death. And the word tawaffa is again used to indicate death. And then he says, فَيُمْسِكُ الَّتِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا الْمَوْتَ وَيُرْسِلُ الْأُخْرَى إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُّسَمًّى. This verse of the Holy Quran is very clear, and it clinches the issue once and for all. The Holy Quran says tawaffa means death, but also partial death. So when God causes somebody to die in sleep, because it is not total death, then the Holy Quran says, فَيُمْسِكُ الَّتِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا. Then during that period of partial death, when God decides that the total death should be imposed on, what should be the word? God should make him die totally and finally. He does not permit the soul to return to the body. So, according to Allama here, it means taking of soul in reality. Whether you call it sleep or death, this issue is resolved that what God means by word tawaffa is, we take away the soul. Then God says, in some cases we permit the soul to return to the body, and such a person is revived from a partial death. And I have spoken on this subject in depth and in detail with reference to the modern psychological studies, where sleep is proved to be a process of ebbing out of consciousness and moving towards death. So, according to the latest studies, the dreams play the part of sending the soul or the consciousness back to the surface again. Otherwise, if this process remained uninterrupted, everybody who would sleep would die ultimately. So this is a system created by God. And the Holy Quran is right when it says it is death. It is the beginning of death, the sleep is. So this is why there is a disease for which there is no known cure. Some children and even some old people sleep into death because their according to the Holy Quran, God decides that yes, this is the total withdrawal this time. So the souls are never returned. That means their system of dreams is interrupted by God. And the dreams which play a very important role in sending the soul back, as we call it soul, and the scientists discuss it, we refer to it as consciousness, then that takes place. So I can't give you the details of what already I have said, but because it's very interesting, so I should remind you of the gist of this discovery which I have discussed. In sleep, everyone, whoever it is, man or an animal, whatever it is, goes into visions which we call dreams. And that phenomenon is not accidental or haphazard or disorganized. This is a regular phenomenon with such precision that some scientists call it with the electronic precision. As the electrons move in the atoms, with that precision, this phenomenon takes place exact on the dot. So for the first period of sleep, if it is the dreams begin to appear after an hour and 30 minutes, let's say, then in every case, right on dot, with atomic precision, every man would begin to see dreams at that period. And that atomic clock within, whether you call it atomic or whatever it is, but from the precision point of view, we can refer it to an atomic clock. That atomic clock within the human system never fails. So during the period of the dreams, consciousness begins to return to the surface, and the eyes begin to blink, and the rapid eye movement phenomenon starts. And then scientists can monitor all this, and whenever they wake such a person, at that moment, then he remembers that dream. But when you say we have dreamless sleeps, what happens is that this phenomenon goes on working without your taking note of it, without you being conscious of it, without your remembering your experiences. So most people forget, and some people remember. So during that period, when the soul is in the state of partial withdrawal, also Allah sends messages to us when the souls are nearer to God in that sense. And those dreams, then which are born out of that state, are born out of a conscious system of conveying messages. System of conveying messages which is consciously created by God and the agencies which are employed by God for this purpose. So this is why Allah says mutawaffika is applicable also to the state of sleep. Now this author is very categorical on this issue, that mutawaffi has no other meaning but death, partial or complete. And those of the scholars, now this is a fit rebuttal to Maulana Maududi Sahib. He says those of the scholars who have attempted to take it to mean the ascent of body along with the soul have absolutely no knowledge of what they are talking about. It is tantamount to attributing a completely new meaning to the established Arabic words which have never belonged to them. And this is it's a great scholar who is an Arab. And he says that the position of Maulana Maududi is absurd and untenable. This has never happened and will never happen. This is tantamount to attributing different things to different words which don't belong to them. So he quotes also Imam Malik and Ibn Abbas and Wahab bin Munabbah, which I have already quoted earlier. Now again, this author seems to be a very intelligent author. I must pay tribute to his intelligence, because he has pointed out something very interesting. He says that although there are traditions of the Holy Prophet that Jesus Christ would descend in the latter days, and we simply can't wave off those traditions which speak of this possibility, of this future event. But the mistake which has been committed by the earlier Muslim scholars and many others of the current scholars is this, that instead of subjecting the tradition of the Holy Quran to the superior authority, subjecting the traditions attributed to Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the superior authority and the most dependable authority of the Holy Quran, what they have done is they have subjected the verses of the Holy Quran to the comparatively doubtful authority of those traditions which have been attributed to the Holy Prophet of Islam. So this is the fundamental mistake which they have committed, and this they have done because of their own views which they had held for some reason or another. So there are three factors now playing part in this conflict. Number one, they had their own views about Jesus Christ. How they got infiltrated into them, nobody knows. Also, they heard of some traditions of the Holy Prophet speaking of the future descent of Jesus Christ. The word Nuzul is mentioned here. And third, there was the Holy Quran which was categorical that Jesus had died. There is no question of his life in any manner of speaking. So they tried to compromise this triangular conflict by sticking to their own views and subjecting the Holy Quran to conform to their own views and the traditions which they had themselves misinterpreted in the light of their views. So that is how this confusion has been caused, and this is the analysis of this great scholar, and this analysis seems to be an analysis of an Ahmadi. I mean, this exactly as we believe it happened. But after all, he's not an Ahmadi. So his position regarding the traditions, differs with the Ahmadiyya position. So in honesty to his views, let me clarify his position that he does not hold Ahmadiyya views on all these issues alike. As far as the interpretation of the tradition is concerned, although he agrees with the Ahmadis that the hadith, the traditions regarding the descent must be interpreted in the light of the Holy Quran, but his interpretation differs. So I must tell you what his interpretation is. He says there are various possibilities. He says Wahab bin Munabba has solved this problem by suggesting that Jesus Christ died only for 3 hours, and then God gave him a new life and lifted him to himself. So the word tawaffi should not be translated in any other way but death, but the compromise between this statement of the Holy Quran and the traditions can be effected by taking the view that he must have died and then got revived. So this is all without authority, all hocus pocus. There is no mention whatsoever in any tradition of the Holy Prophet of Islam. So he tries to escape from one absurdity and lands into another. After all, he's not an Ahmadi. So he has to stick to his own views as well. That is the fourth factor added here now in the conflict. He says some others believe that it was not 3 hours but 7 hours death. As if that is an important issue. But he says, and in all justice to his integrity, I must say, he admits that as far as the greater scholars of Islam are concerned, like Hazrat Ibn Abbas and Imam Malik, they have not spoken a word on this partial death, etc. They have spoken of death and leave the matter at that. But he says, ये भी जायज़ है कि he says, but there is another possibility, of course. Now, if Imam Malik, if Hazrat Ibn Abbas have taken this position of his permanent death and no revival up to the time of their statement, then he say, of course, it seems that he is impressed by that. So he wants to find some other solution. And the solution which he offers is that perhaps it is all right if we believe that he remained dead until this time. And God had raised his corpse as dead to the heaven. And after that, when God ultimately would decide to send him again, he would revive him just before the time of his, his second advent, and then would send him. So one is surprised, without the light of ilham, without the light of revelation, the most enlightened people on earth are blind. Without the help of Hazrat Masih Maud, we could not have reached this most beautiful rational position, rational attitude regarding these verses and their compromise with the traditions, because these people unfortunately did not see with the light of revelation. So they started making their own mistakes, unfortunately. And here he quotes another tradition in favor of this possibility by saying that according to some versions of traditions, the word yanzilu is not used, but yab'asu is used. So here the position, now let me correct myself. He didn't say raise the corpse of Jesus Christ. What he said, in the light of this now I understand, what he said was that it is possible that God caused him to die and he got buried like ordinary prophets somewhere, we don't know. So because the Holy Prophet has also used the words Yabasullahu Isa, God would raise Jesus Christ. So maybe the word Yanzilo only means Besat, raising of Jesus Christ. And so it is possible for us to believe that when the time would come, then Jesus would be raised from the dead to perform his function and then would be made to die again. Now here, there is a very interesting debate which arises out of this belief that he would be raised from the dead. The question arises, after one is raised from the dead, can he be made to die again? Can he suffer two deaths? So no Muslim scholar can agree to this position. So another problem is they are confronting another problem. To solve this issue, they have suggested, some of them have suggested that no, he will not die again. So after performing his duties here, he would be raised up to heaven straight away and no more death for him. And some have taken refuge in a supposed tradition quoted by Hazrat Abu Huraira, that Jesus, having performed his functions here, would be made to die. And then his soul would return to God. Now, other scholars have criticized this by asserting that this view belongs to Abu Huraira alone, and it is not a part of what Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had said. It was his own opinion that he inserted into that tradition, and on that the great scholars are agreed. So this is not a part of the tradition anyway. It is one of the views expressed by Hazrat Abu Hurairah. He must have been wondering about his what would happen then. So he said that he will be made to die here on earth after performance of his functions, and then would be lifted to heaven. Then he says also it is suggested that Jesus Christ would stay after his revival for 40 years, and this tradition is in Abu Dawud, and after 40 years he would die, and the Muslims would say his janazah prayer. Now this is the same tradition which I have referred to. He is presenting here. This is reported by Abu Hurairah. Now this author does not reveal this secret that this is the view of Abu Hurairah. No, later on he does, I'm sorry. He himself admits. But Imam Razi also has, I think, I'll turn to his opinions later on. He also, as far as I remember, criticized this portion of the hadith as not belonging to the hadith itself, but it was just a view of Hazrat Abu Hurairah. So after this, discussing all this, the author of this commentary, Al-Imam al-Shaykh Muhammad Tahir, says, but the truth is that the word mutawaffiqa must be taken to understand in its apparent meaning and in no other way. And whatever your interpretation of tradition be, this is your choice. But you must not subject the verses of the Holy Quran to the so-called authority of the traditions. The traditions must always be subjected to the higher authority of the Holy Quran. This is his final conclusion, with which of course we all agree. In Tafsir al-Manar, which was published in 1367 Hijrah, about 40 years ago, he also takes the position exactly like the position taken by Muhammad al-Tahir. And he says that the meaning is, I am going to cause you to die, and then I'll raise your status and elevate you to myself. He says this expression rafana is used exactly in the same sense as it is used as applicable to Hazrat Idris, an earlier prophet. And the Holy Quran says, وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا, we lifted him to a position of high rank. So he says, as we translate this verse to mean high rank, not a higher place in the four-dimensional world, so also rafana should be bal rafahu ilayya or rafiuka ilayya should be translated likewise. So he repeats all the different positions taken by different scholars. And again, the position taken by the other non-Ahmadi scholars regarding the change of order of words, mutawaffiqa should be placed somewhere else in that statement. He says he's very critical of this attitude, and he says that perhaps they have forgotten that in any sensible statement of high quality, it is impossible for you to suggest a change of order and positioning of the words without first proving giving the reasons why it should be so. And he says, according to those who claim this is what had happened, they have nothing to suggest in favor of this proposed change of order. I mean, their claim that the order should be changed from mutawaffika is totally unsupported, and there is no reason, no earthly reason why this should be done. It's a very interesting commentary, so I leave most of it, which is just, additional facts. As far as the Ahmadiyya issue and this debate is concerned, he is in total agreement with the Ahmadiyya view that Jesus Christ was made to die by God, and he was not lifted bodily to the heaven. But again, he has to explain the traditions of the Holy Prophet. So there his position is more in the sphere of metaphors, etc. He says all these traditions regarding the descent of Masih and regarding the killing of Antichrist at the hands of Masih should be understood to mean only a phenomenon, a philosophy. And he says the message is that whenever things go wrong and get corrupted, then a phenomenon is repeated. And the word Masih here is used as a symbol only. That messianic phenomenon would take shape at that time as if automatically or under God's governance. And so he says persons are not involved in this. No Messiah would appear because he's dead. This is the simple problem. Allama Rashid Raza also is a great scholar of the modern times. This book, Tafsir al-Hadith, was published in 1963 from Egypt, from Cairo. He says, Rafa, Tawaffi means death, and clearly it doesn't mean anything else but death in Ya Isa inni mutawaffika. And Rafiuka means lifting of status, elevation of position, and not of body. Then again he during the discussion on this verse, he turns to another verse of the Holy Quran, وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ, and says that here the pronoun contained in قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ refers to the Ahl Kitab, the people of the book, and not to the Messiah. I don't know how it serves his purpose, but he seems to prove from that Jesus is not alive. Again, Tafsir al-Maraghi. There is another modern tafsir which was published from Cairo in 1982, Fi Zilal al-Quran. Tafsir written by Sayyid Qutb, he is also a famous writer of the modern times. Maulana Qutb, you should remember, is deeply influenced by Maududi, and he is supposed to hold the similar views as Maulana Maududi held, and he is considered to be an Arabian Maududi. But one thing we must say in his favor, that he is more enlightened. I think he is the one who was martyred, Sayyid Qutb. He is more enlightened. So on the question of the life and death of Jesus Christ, he says that they are ghaibi umur. They are things belonging to the realm of the unknown. And we have no authority to open our lips on this subject. So we must take the Holy Quran statements on their face value as they are. And we must not discuss or attempt to find out what they mean. Let them remain as such and consider them to be ghaibi umur, things which are of a realm of, of the unknown. So that shows, did I say he was more intelligent? I don't know. It doesn't show his intelligence anyway. But it proves that at least he is more God-fearing. In his heart he knew that he could not take the position taken by Maududi and others that Jesus Christ was alive. So to avoid that confrontation, he took this course of Rabbi Amur. All right, I can't understand this, but other scholars have believed, so let me not confront them on this issue. Now there is a very interesting book recently published from Cairo in 1984, is it? They write this, 87.
Yes,
87, yes, that's right. As Al-Masihiyya, written by Dr. Ahmed Shalabi, PhD, Jamia Cambridge, Ustad al-Tarikh al-Islami, Jamia al-Qahira, Misr. At-Tabusani, it was also published in 84. You see?
This one is 84.
This is the second edition. I'm talking of the first. First it was published in 1984 by Maktaba al-Munahza or what? Munahza? An-Nahdat al-Misriya. By Maktaba al-Nahdat al-Misriya al-Qahira, Misr. Misr is, I think, pronounced Masr by the Egyptians. The second book is Kitab al-Masih Bain al-Injil wal-Quran, written by Ustaz Mahmoud al-Barshumi al-Azhari, al-Kitabu Zahabi as-Sana 33 al-Ashir, October 1987, Masr. So this book, the second one which I have mentioned, Al-Masih Bain al-Injil wal-Quran, this makes our task easier because he has collected all the important opinions of the contemporary scholars and some earlier ones as well, who have very strongly and categorically supported the Ahmadiyya view, not in so many words, but they have taken the identical position as the Ahmadis have taken regarding the life and death of Jesus Christ. He has collected some very important data and he has gone into discussion, very scholarly discussion himself on this subject. He quotes from Liwaul Islam, he quotes from Imam Razi, he quotes from, and the same portion, a para has been adopted by him, which I have already introduced to you. The final conclusion of Imam Razi. Then he speaks of Hazrat Allama Ulusi, Allama al-Ulusi, Tafsir Suruhul Maani. Then he speaks of Ibn Hazm. Then he quotes Imam Muhammad Abduhu, also a great scholar of the modern times. Then he quotes the most often quoted Arab scholar Allama Mahmud Shaltut by Ahmadis, because he was in charge of Department of Edict. What do you call it? Darul Ifta को क्या कहते हैं अंग्रेजी में? No. Darul Ifta. Fatwa is called edict. So how would you call Darul Ifta? From edict, how can you make an infinitive? I don't know anyway. No. But there must be some term anyway. You have made myself clear to you. We will find out the right word later on. But for the time being, let it suffice that Mahmud Shaltut was the head of that section of Jamia Azhar, where they issued edicts on debatable points in Islamic theology. And he has officially issued this fatwa or edict that Jesus Christ is dead according to the Holy Quran, according to the traditions of the Holy Prophet of Islam and everything. And he had got his stamp, imprinted on that edict. That is why Allama Shaltut is so well known among the Ahmadis, and we often quote him. Again, Ustad Rashid Radwa is also a contemporary of Allama Shaltut. He is also very categorical and clear. Then the author of this book quotes Ustaz Amin Izzul Arab, and again his position is the same. Then he quotes Ustad Muhammad Abu Zahra, and the same position. Then he quotes Imam al-Muraghi. I have already introduced him to you. Then he quotes Al-Shaykh Abdul Wahab Najjar, and then again his position is identical. Then he quotes Allama Sayyid Qutb. But this is very interesting. There Sayyid Qutb seems to have taken that position that we shouldn't be concerned and this is something belonging to the realm of absent. Here he quotes him where Allama Qutb is categorical in the view that Jesus Christ did die a natural death. That is the place where he is. Allama Qutb has spoken on this subject twice. In the first place, when I quoted him, there he was facing a different problem, where the question was, if Jesus had died, how would he come again? And Allama Qutb still believes that those traditions have to be accepted where he is promised to pay a second visit to us. So that was his dilemma when he discussed this. He said, this is correct that he is dead. This is correct that he is coming again. How it would happen, this is a dilemma which I don't know. This issue is a matter of the absent. That is, let me clarify it and rectify my position here. And thank God that I saw this second excerpt, otherwise I may have been blamed for misquoting Allama Sayyid Qutb. Ustaz Muhammad al-Ghazali, he says rather mildly that my personal inclination is that Jesus Christ died like all other prophets did. And the same thing happened to his body as happened to the bodies of the earlier prophets. He doesn't say that the body got interred because, that is also debatable. He says the same, whatever happened to the bodies of the early prophets, the same thing happened to him, to his body. Then he quotes two verses of the Holy Quran oft quoted in the favor of Ahmadiyya position, which are innaka mayyitun wa innahum mayyitun and wa ma Muhammadun illa rasul qad khalat min qablihi rusul. Then Ustaz Salah Abu Ismail is quoted in support of the same view. Then Ustad Dr. Ahmed Shiki is again quoted to hold the same view. And Ustad Muhammad al-Barshumi, after quoting all these great scholars, says this is exactly my view and this is the correct position according to the Holy Quran and the traditions. So this is the great victory of Ahmadiyyat, and the battle started, which is still in the process of consummation. But this battle started about 90 years ago, and Hazrat Masih Maud was at that time the lone voice in the whole world of Islam and in the whole world of Christianity who said that Jesus is dead, and you will see new signs appearing, and you will see people getting tired of this view that Jesus is alive in heaven, and you will see them changing their positions until a time would come when there will be no one on earth who will believe in the physical life of Jesus Christ in heaven in any form. So we are moving now very rapidly towards that consummation of Hazrat Masih Maud Islam's prophecy. ये उठा लें. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَمَا لَهُم مِّن نَّاصِرِينَ وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَيُوَفِّيهِمْ أُجُورَهُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ ذَلِكَ نَتْلُوهُ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ الْآيَاتِ وَالذِّكْرِ الْحَكِيمِ. Then as for those who disbelieve, I will punish them with a severe punishment in this world and in the next, and they shall have no helpers. And as for those who believe and do good works, He will pay them their full rewards, and Allah loves not the wrongdoers. That is what we recite unto thee of the signs and the wise reminder. Acha. So that can't be done today. It's too long. Or shall we finish with this and finish with this whole? This is what you suggest? Okay. Now before turning to the next verse, let me complete my discourse on the verse under discussion. Ya Isa inni mutawaffika. Now repeatedly, the Muslim scholars, even those who have sided with the Ahmadiyya position in this regard, mention the traditions of Rasul Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam speaking on the future descent of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, they think this is contradiction. So, because they believe this is contradiction, so they have to adopt one of the two positions. Either they have to reject these traditions as totally unacceptable and stick to the position that Jesus is dead, so He would never return. Or they take the other extreme and say that Jesus is alive in heaven and He would return bodily. So they do not know any third compromising position in between the two. The main problem with them is the understanding of the word nuzul. Nuzul means descent. And I'm surprised at why could not they understand this word nuzul as mentioned in the Holy Quran. The issue is so clear that it is unbelievable and amazing how such great scholars could miss the point of the true meaning of nuzul. So to complete this discussion, I have chosen I have chosen those verses of the Holy Quran which speak of nuzul as such, and they are self-explanatory. And as I will finish the reading of those recitation of those verses, then the whole matter will become crystal clear to you that when the word nuzul is used in application to a prophet of God, it does not mean his bodily descent at all. So the Holy Quran is very clear about the use of the word nuzul and you do not have to look elsewhere for a supporting evidence in favor of your own view. So I will start from जायद है yes yes You know, one thing is very clear, that whenever water is mentioned to have descended, the word sama or heaven is always used to indicate, not always but most often definitely, to indicate that here the bodily descent is meant. So the word sama here only covers that height which is occupied by various rain-shedding clouds. This also should be understood by you. So there the Holy Quran speaks of nuzul of water from heaven, and by heaven there is not meant a third, fourth heaven as you understand, of some places high above, you the reach of your imagination, but the heaven within your reach. The Holy Quran says, "Alam tara anna Allah anzala min as-samaa'i ma'an fatusbihu al-ardu mukhdarra inna Allah latifun khabir." Hast thou not seen that Allah sends down water from the sky and the earth becomes green? Allah is indeed the knower of subtleties and all aware. Then وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَرْسَلَ الرِّيَاحَ بُشْرًا بَيْنَ يَدَيْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. And we caused water to descend from the heaven, pure water to descend from the heaven. وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً بِقَدَرٍ فَأَسْكَنَّاهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And we caused water to descend from heaven with the measure, and we caused it to stay in earth for a period. And we are capable also of taking it away as we please. هُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ السَّكِينَةَ فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The word sama is mentioned in all these places. So the concept of physical descent is born out of that. Now in the remaining verses which I am going to quote, there is no question whatsoever of your understanding the word nuzul in physical terms. And the Holy Quran is clear itself on these issues. هُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ السَّكِينَةَ فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعَ إِيمَانِهِمْ. It is Allah alone who sent peace, caused peace to descend on the hearts of the believers. So the peace does not descend, for bodily and physically from anywhere. It is born in the heart, but of course, if it is organized by God and with the special, will of God, some angels motivate this phenomenon, then this is referred to as a descent from God. But the word sama is missing. This is the important thing. Then the Holy Quran says, ثُمَّ أَنزَلَ عَلَيْكُم مِّن بَعْدِ الْغَمِّ أَمَنَةً نُعَاسًا يَغْشَى طَائِفَةً مِّنكُمْ. And after the great sorrow and infliction, we caused amanatan nu'asan to descend upon you, which means a peaceful sleep. So a peaceful sleep does not descend from physical heaven in any form, it goes from within you. Then the Holy Quran says, Inna anzala Taurata fiha hudam wa nur. and we caused Torah to descend, in which there is light and guidance from Allah. And while you know, and everybody else also believes, that Torah did not descend bodily from heaven, it was revealed to Moses. Then the Holy Quran says, Suratun anzalnaha wa faradnaha wa anzalna fiha ayatin bayyinat. This is a surah, this is a chapter of the Holy Quran which we have caused to descend. Now I'll speak of this, why this surah particularly has been chosen, while the entire Holy Quran is also mentioned elsewhere to have descended as such. But this surah in particular has been spoken of as one surah which has descended from God, but not from heaven. Allahul Lazi anzal al-kitaba bil-haq wal-mizan wa ma yudrika la'alla as-sa'ata qareeb. It is Allah Himself who has caused this book or the book to descend with truth and also to descend with perfect balance, al-mizan. وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ لَعَلَّ السَّاعَةَ قَرِيبٌ. And what can lead you to guess whether the time of great revolution has come nigh or not? Then the Holy Quran speaks of the Holy Quran, and as I believe also of the Holy Prophet of Islam. In this verse, Ya ayyuhan nasu qad ja'akum burhanum min rabbikum. O people, God, from God, the manifest argument or proof has come to you from God. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ نُورًا مُبِينًا. And we have caused a clear light to descend for you. Here, as I believe, as has been made clear elsewhere in the Holy Quran, the word Nur can refer both to the revelation and to the Holy Prophet who was the recipient of that revelation, peace be upon him. And you know, in both cases, there was no bodily descent. Then God is beginning now to speak of material things. So it is there that the material translation is more appropriate. So some people may have raised this doubt that of course these are immaterial things, you're talking of immaterial things. So whenever the word nuzul is applicable to immaterial things, then it is understandable, and we also know that it should be understood in metaphorical terms, because in no other way you can understand this application. So all the things which I have discussed previously belong to that realm of immaterial existence. But now begins the reference from the Holy Quran where Allah uses the word nuzul to material, bodily, palpable things. And then you can understand the usage of nuzul better in the light of these verses. وَظَلَّلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْغَمَامَ وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى. We caused man and salwa to descend for you. This is a material food provided by God from the jungle, from the woodlands or the desert land, and it never came from the heaven bodily. So God is speaking here of some material things, and still the meaning is that they grow there in your presence on the earth. Further, to make the meaning very clear and beyond a shadow of doubt, the Holy Quran says, وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدَ فِيهِ بَاسٌ شَدِيدٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ مَن يَنصُرُهُ وَرُسُلَهُ بِالْغَيْبِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ قَوِيٌّ عَزِيزٌ. Al-Hadid 26. We have caused iron to descend for you. فِيهِ بَاسٌ شَدِيدٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. In that there is a occasion for you to fight, and great struggles are born out of it. and also there are great benefits to be reaped from the metal iron. So have you ever seen iron showering from the heaven? What you see is that it is dug out from the earth. So the word nuzul is applicable to a thing which does not descend bodily, but is dug out from underneath your feet. This is the true book, the great book, which speaks in terms which are universal and for all times. No progressive age and no progressive concepts can defeat the usage of this book. Because here the God is not speaking in terms of material heights in relation to the pointing of our heads or pointing of our feet, but it speaks of such meanings which are universal and which are timeless. So hadid is mentioned as having been descended. Then the Holy Quran says, Ya bani Adama qad anzalna alaykum libasan yuwari sawatikum. All the dresses you are wearing, they were caused to descend by God. Now, have you ever seen your dresses pouring out during some rain or somewhere from heaven? I mean, this is absurd. So the Holy Quran speaks of your dress, all the dresses which are worn by men all over the world, that God caused them to descend. But that is not all. You know, I remember reading the story of Sheikh Chilli when I was a child, in which it was told that once there was, some character, Sheikh Chilli, who during the rain, somebody played a joke upon him and started throwing pakoras and gulgulas and things, these sweet meats and salty dishes prepared by children, by Pakistanis and Indians during rainy seasons. So those pakoras were showered from behind a cover upon Sheikh Chilli. So from then on, he always referred to that day when the pakoras used to rain from heaven, that day this happened. So actually believed that they came from the heaven like the waters, the drops of water. So now, you might have heard of these things in other literature as well, but you would never have heard showering of animals from the heaven, like buffaloes, like cows. And if the word nazul is to be understood in material terms as the mullahs would have us, then how would they translate this verse? It says, خَلَقَكُم مِّن نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ ثُمَّ جَعَلَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا. God has created you from one single soul, and from that soul, referring to it as a female, nafsin wahidatin, God created zawjaha, her companion. So I don't want to dilate on this, but now listen what Holy Quran has for us. وَأَنزَلَ لَكُم مِّنَ الْأَنْعَامِ ثَمَانِيَةَ أَزْوَاجٍ. And God has caused to descend upon you 8 types of cattle. So all the cattle, including camels and buffaloes and cows and goats and all that, the varieties of cattle, species of cattle, according to the Holy Quran, came down from heaven, if you must understand the word nuzul to mean a physical descent. So, what is it that God wants to convey to us? This is what is to be understood. Now, all this riddle will be solved by the one final verse which I am going to recite to you as chosen specimen from the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran says, وَقَدْ أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكُمْ ذِكْرَ الرَّسُولَ يَتْلُو عَلَيْكُمْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ مُبَيِّنَاتٍ لِيُخْرِجَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ وَمَنْ يُؤْمِنْ بِاللَّهِ وَيَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا يُدْخِلْهُ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا قَدْ أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ لَهُ رِزْقًا. At-Talaq, 11 and 12. That God has caused to descend towards you a prophet of God who is remembrance of God personified. Zikrar Rasula. Zikran means that he is the remembrance of Allah personified. But he is a prophet of God, Rasula, messenger of Allah. Yatlu alaykum ayatillahi. He recites for you the verses and the signs of Allah, mubayyanatin liyukhrij allazina amanu, making it manifestly clear, making things manifestly clear. The verses of God which are manifestly clear, mubayyanatin liyukhrij allazina amanu, so that he may turn those who believe in him or in God or in these things, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and do good deeds, from darknesses to the light, that is the light of God. Now, how could you conceive the Holy Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to have descended bodily from heaven when all the Muslims believe that he was born? So, why all this? What does the word nuzul stand for? This is the problem which has to be resolved. Now, also remember one thing. In the whole of the Holy Quran, and to the best of my knowledge, in entire Old Testament and the New Testament, and also in no other book as known to me, God has referred to any prophet of God having descended bodily from heaven, or having descended in any sense. God has spoken elsewhere abundantly of causing the message to descend and other things I have mentioned, but never a prophet other than the Holy Prophet of Islam. So that clinches the issue once and for all for us and for everybody else. Herein lies the key of understanding of the word nuzul. Now, why this distinction? Now, anyone can understand that of all the prophets of God, the most outstanding and the most beneficial and the most useful prophet was the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the word nuzul must mean something extraordinarily useful and beneficent. If something has that connotation of being an extraordinary thing of commodity of benefit and a source of blessing in its own way, then you can use the word nuzul regarding that. Now we return to the earlier usages and apply this formula and see whether our guess is right or wrong. So, of all the animals created by God, the most useful for the mankind, and in fact those which have proved the mainstay of the entire development and progress of mankind, are the cattle. Take the cattle out of the life of human beings and you will return to thousands upon thousands of years earlier to your old age, maybe back to the Stone Age. It was the cattle which has proved to be the mainstay of the entire survival of the human race and the progress of human race. God has mentioned this elsewhere also, what usage we have been putting the cattle to. So it is the cattle out of all the animals without a shadow of doubt, which stand out as very special source of benefits for mankind. So this also agrees with the earlier translation, which is obvious of course, that the Holy Prophet among all the prophets is the most beneficent and the most useful prophet of all the prophets of Allah. Now, for civilization, the role which dress has played, and for the survival of mankind, the role which the dress has played is unparalleled in any other article of his usage. With dresses, mobility was given to him. in every type of weather, kind or unkind. It was the dress which made him survive under the severest conditions of weather and which helped him progress in the path of civilization. So, of all the articles of usage, even including houses, the dress stands out. This was once the house of mankind. And with this dress, he moved about anywhere he pleased, and all his progress is dependent on this creation of dress, which has not been gifted to any other animal. So this is also a mark of distinction. Some sorts of houses are also provided to other animals. They share this with other mankind, with the whole mankind. But this is a distinction. Dress, which is disposable dress, is only a mark of honor for mankind. This is why the Holy Quran mentions it as nuzul, under the word nuzul. God caused it to descend. Then of all the metals which we have discovered so far or which we will ever discover, the role played by iron stands out and is unparalleled. Take out iron from the history of human progress and then see where we will fall back, slip back to the old ages. It is the iron throughout which has sustained us in the various stages of development and which has achieved huge things for us. The entire human progress is dependent, and the scientific progress is dependent much more on iron than on any other metal. It is the iron which laid down the entire base. Now the discovery of other minute elements and so on and so forth, of course, are found to be useful. But without that, we could still survive. And they have not played an important role in our history anyway. But the iron is the only ore which is distinct in all these, or in the comity of these ores. So, wherever a material thing is mentioned, again man and salva is mentioned. This is a material thing, and God has made it clear elsewhere that when the Jews demanded, or the Bani Israel, the children of Israel demanded, that they should be provided by God the vegetables grown on earth and the wheat, etc. You know the answer given to them? أَتَسْتَبْدِلُونَ بِالَّذِي هُوَ خَيْرٌ الَّذِي هُوَ أَدْنَى بِالَّذِي هُوَ خَيْرٌ. What is this attitude? Do you want to exchange or barter that which is lowly and inferior with that which is superior? So again, the concept of superiority, the meaning of superiority is inherent in this verse. So whatever is superior in benefit and in favors is mentioned by the Holy Quran under the word nuzul. So where is the mystery about the nuzul of Jesus Christ? He is the only other prophet who is mentioned, though not by the Holy Quran, but mentioned by the Holy Prophet of Islam himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the one who would descend later on. Obviously, because his advent would be the most useful for mankind in the latter days. Like the advent of the Holy Prophet of Islam was the most useful for the whole mankind for all years and all times to come. But particularly with reference to the latter day period, Jesus was to play a very important role. So that is why he has always been mentioned in the traditions as the one who would be caused to descend, but never from heaven. This is the beauty of those traditions, and that is why you trust that these traditions must have belonged to Rasulullah, because the style is that of the Holy Quran. And they are very clear. They don't mention that he would descend from heaven. You say, we will cause him to descend, he will descend, and this and that, but the word nuzul is used. Maybe occasionally in one or two odd traditions, the non-Ahmadis may quote the word sama as having been used. but because it is against the established use of the Holy Quran and all the other overwhelming traditions, so from that we must infer that that is a concoction and human-made hadith, and or at least a word was added by somebody misunderstanding. But in the overwhelming cases of the traditions, the word sama is not used. Only the word descent is used, and the Holy Quran has made this word very clear for us now. I mean, not now, but for you, I'm trying to make it clear on the authority of the Holy Quran.